All right, let's look at this game where Vaishali tried to throw down with the endgame boss himself, Magnus Carlsen. Let's see how this tragedy unfolded. The opening and mid-game shuffle. Vaishali starts off pushing her pawn to a4, and Magnus goes with the Sicilian, putting his pawn on c5. We get some standard development. Knights jumping out, Magnus locking down the center with his pawn on a5. Vaishali castles early, brings her bishop back to c4, and Magnus just slides his pawn to h6 like, don't even think about coming over here. Then the center opens up. White captures on d4, Magnus brings his bishop to c5, aiming right at White's king side. Vaishali tries to get aggressive, pushing her pawn to b4 to kick the bishop, and then swings her queen to b3 to threaten a sneaky checkmate threat on f7. But Magnus is completely unfazed. He just slides his queen to e7 and shuts it down. Vaishali starts launching her a pawn down the board like it's a sprint, pushing it all the way to a5. Magnus just calmly tucks his bishop away on c7, totally safe, while White's pawns are looking way too overextended. Magnus castles his king into safety, and suddenly his pieces are looking way more coordinated. The structural collapse. Vaishali brings her rook to e1 to control the center. Magnus launches a knight to g4, and Vaishali panics a bit, pushing her pawn to h3 to kick it. The knight just hops right into e2 anyway, making itself comfortable. After a bunch of trades in the center, Magnus lands his knight on e5, a perfect outpost right in the middle of White's territory. Vaishali tries to harass his d-pawn with her bishop, but Magnus just kicks it away with a pawn push and reinforces his whole queen side. It's like watching someone build a brick wall in front of your face. Vaishali tries to get aggressive with a pawn push to f4, but Magnus ignores the drama, brings his queen to e6, and offers a queen trade. Because when you're Magnus, you know you win the endgame. Vaishali says no thanks and runs her queen back to d1. Big mistake. Magnus immediately grabs the open c-file with his rook and drops a bishop into c3, pinning White's pieces to the floor. The tactical cleanup. Vaishali tries to untangle by moving her rook to e3. Magnus says, "Thanks for the target," flies his bishop to d4, and just chops White's defender right off the board. Magnus completely colonizes the c-file, doubling up his rooks. White's position is officially a disaster zone. Vaishali tries a desperate queen lunge to g4, hoping for a miracle attack. Magnus, cold as ice, just offers another queen trade on g6. Vaishali finally accepts it, but now her kingside pawns are a mangled, split mess. Magnus starts hunting the weak pawns. He swaps bishops, gobbles up a free pawn on b4, and begins a brutal liquidation sequence. Knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes. He is systematically deleting White's pieces from existence. Vaishali's army is reduced to a single sad bishop and a lonely rook. The final position. Which brings us to the exact image on your screen. Vaishali just moved her bishop to b7, pretending to threaten a pawn. Magnus completely ignores it and parks his rook on a 2, threatening to slaughter White's entire remaining family of pawns. The computer says White is completely lost. Moving the king to g1 just lets you watch your civilization burn in slow motion. Time to pack up the pieces and go get a coffee. Magnus wins, water is wet. More news at 11.